In this tutorial, I will show you how you can create this trim material. So let me prepare the scene here. I delete everything. Then I press Shift A and add an icosphere with maybe 4 subdivisions. Then go to the edit mode by pressing Tab, select everything with A, then F3 and look for how's it called? Just search for smooth and shade smooth. Now we have a smooth icosphere. Then I switch to the shading tab, wait for the shader to compile, select the default material over here, rename it to fur. Then I search for image texture, create a new one, call this fur data, set the resolution to 4K, and put this right on the base color. So now there is black because there's no color information here. Now I switch to the texture paint tab. We see here we have the nice layout of the UV map of the icosphere. It's just an example. So and now I make a new brush. Currently there's only the text raw brush. I make a new brush by clicking on this little 2 here. Rename this. We can find it. Maybe use another project. Then I call the brush to use a texture instead. This can maybe a cloud texture and leave the defaults for now. Now, if I draw here on the sphere, you can see it's basically just this texture, but it's not very fur-like yet. To achieve this, there are multiple ways to do this. What I usually do is, for this generative approach, you can basically just here on the little texture tab here, just increase the X size. And now the texture is a little stretched, but still not enough. So let me increase it maybe to 4. So it's not following the direction of the brush stroke yet. So for this, I use the rake option here. And now it's following the brush stroke direction, but it's basically just repeating itself. For this, there's also a way to do this. Just click here on random instead of view plane. Then the texture will have a more random approach. Basically, it's a random texture coordinate while using the brush. So, and for more natural look, we can also increase the angle here for each rake iteration, maybe 10 degrees. Then we have a more randomized, more natural looking approach. Well, you can also use, instead of the cloud texture, you can also use a real alpha map, like a black and white image for your fur texture. So, and we already see another issue here. The texture is stretching if you get near the edge. This can be prevented, but not entirely, but by using the normal follow function from the brush. Set this to maybe a value of 23 degrees. Then the texture will be automatically have a fall off and will be blended out while drawing. Let's set up the material a bit. For this, we switch to the shading. Now we have here just a black and white texture. I will search for a mix node, a mixed color node. We need this later. Just choose a natural looking color here. maybe like this. Put this on the color instead. Now we have this more natural looking color. And the fur data we will use for basically as a height map. Drag here out and search for a bump node. Directly put it on the height information. And this normal information I directly connect with the normal information of the shader. If we already have some, normal map going on. So then I decrease the distance to maybe a value of 1 or way less than 1, like 0.001. It's almost invisible, maybe a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's good. And also I choose here not a linear interpolation, I will choose a smart interpolation. The texture will look way better if we choose a smart interpolation instead of a linear one. Steps between the pixels are way smoother. So maybe a 0.3, not a 0.3, 0.003. Well, that looks good. And then I use the same height map information, put it onto a color ramp node. Now I have this color ramp, and from here on I will use a mix node to control the specular value. This means the reflectiveness of the material based on the height information I've painted in. So to do this, I get the color output node of the previously created color ramp, put it into the vector of the mix node, and the result goes into the specular IOR level. So maybe I preview this node first. It's all black. I only want the higher values more reflective. Therefore, the higher values should be a little bit more whitish here. Maybe a 0.4 and a 0.1 here. And let's view the material. Well, this looks better. And also for roughness, for the fur, I usually choose a 0.8. Okay, now that the specular and roughness is set up, I also introduce a secondary layer for controlled color. Shift A here, just add another image texture with a resolution of 4K and call this mask, or color mask in this case, 1. So this color mask goes directly into the vector of the previously created color mix node. Now this allows us to control the color by this texture. So to the texture paint tab and choose the order texture by here with selecting the order texture in the drop down menu. So, and now, but it's pretty important to not draw the color in the fur brush itself, rather just with normal color. We should, in the material preview, we can see we have now the other color. But this color is not interacting with the height information yet. To achieve this, we have to do some calculations for this factor here. What I usually do is from the fur data, I choose a power node and multiply the result. Let's put this here for a little more convenience. and multiply the result of this power node with the mask and put this result into the factor of the color mix node. So now we can way better control. Let me choose a more visible color here, a little bit more red-ish. That's too strong, like this. Now we can already see the color is kind of flowing into each other, but with the power node we can really good control how the color is flowing. Okay, maybe not that red, maybe like more orangey, a little bit brighter here. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, so now we have the column setup, we have the normal map setup, and we have some reflectivity information. So, well, it really depends on how you want to set up your material. If you also want to control the roughness or smoothness value, you can basically duplicate this and also you use the fur data as your driving value here, like connecting this with the factor. And it's always a good way to preview the value. So 0.8 at the worst reflectiveness, roughness, and more smooth at the high values, like a 0.3. And connect this to the roughness and see the material. It really is depends on you how you want your material to look. But usually I do not connect the roughness to anything and leave it just blank and leave it a flat value. So, but we keep the notes here. So, the next thing is, because it looks kind of still flat, we can basically copy this mix node here, get the result of the mix node into the input A, and set this here to black. Basically, I want to darken the lower values a little bit. The lower values where the fur is basically deeper. So for this, I drag out another color ramp and connect this here. And what's important, invert this because of the mix node. Otherwise, the low values will be white and not white. I mean, oh, it's not connected yet. See, the lower values are now driven by this color ramp node. We can also choose the interpolation to be B-spline. Looks a little bit more smooth then. And maybe not have the last handle to entirely black. I mean the first handle to entirely white. Now the deeper valleys of the data texture are a little bit darkened. It basically fakes a bit of shading at this point. Can also maybe increase the strength of the normal map here. Yeah, see. Okay, this is basically the entire frame material. Maybe you think the generated texture looks not good. You can always use another brush or a texture to drive the brush. Switch back to the fur texture and create a new texture of the type image or movie. Give it a proper name, you can find it back later, and then locate a feasible and tileable texture. Now we have here a fur texture. It looks way different now. It's because the fur texture is kind of already stretched and we do not need the default stretch here. And also the fur texture is, the specific one I use here is 4K resolution, so I can also choose a smaller size here. And just comb the thing on. Especially with this texture, you see here a really nice transition for each hair strand. Now, maybe you want also secondary color instead of just 2. For this, you can basically just copy the first layer of nodes here. Basically the color max, the power node, the multiply, and the mix. Just copy them, put them a little bit down, connect the for data information to the base input of the power node, and connect the result of the first mix node to the A input of the second mix node. And set another color, maybe blue, bluish thing, and connect this result to the A input of the darkening mix node. So, and now, because color mask 1 is still used, we fix this now by just click here on the little 2. The little 2 indicates the number of references for this texture. Just click on the 2. Now it's a separate texture. Call this color mask 2. As you see, color mask 2 is empty and color mask 1 is still set to our what we have done before, like this little swatch. And here color 2 is empty. Ensure color 2 is selected and just draw with the right brush. See? For a better organization, I would also recommend putting your nodes into a node group. For this, just place them out and be sure to basically reroute all these connections here, because otherwise you have way too much inputs. Shift and right click and draw a line here. Now these nodes are all connected into this point, but share the same data. So just select the nodes, press F3 and search for make group. Now we have the node group. We have 2 inputs. The 2 inputs are basically, I just press tab here. The 2 inputs are basically our color maps, color masks, I mean, and our fur data. So let's give them a name by clicking here on this little arrow symbol. You see all informations about the node group. Give it a name, maybe fur. And the first input is our, just double click the names, mask 1 and mask 2 and fur data. It can the fur data is also just can also be just float, because it's just height information, no color information. So for the output, we have the normal. It's already correctly named, and maybe just for convenience, I want the color on the top. just drag and drop it and rename it to color. And result is in this case our specular information. And we can also add, for convenience, our roughness by just clicking the little plus icon here and choose output and call it roughness. And just connect the roughness node setup to the roughness. Now we have a reusable material. It looks very simple now in the nodes. It can be also used in any kind of masking setup you may like. Well, that's the entire material. One important thing to mention is via texture painting, only paint in black and white.